inductee into our Hall of Fame. So we are very proud and very pleased to have you with us this morning. You will be talking with students later this morning, but today we want to give the public a chance to hear a little bit more about Andy. So let's start. He graduated from Festus High School in 2004. Tell me a little bit about why he wanted to go into the military. Why was he so set on going into the military? Because you told me before that that's what he wanted to do and from the very beginning.
He was always interested in it because my dad served in the Navy and the Army. So Andy was always interested, both our boys were. But 9/11 really motivated him because he never liked, he didn't like people picking on, younger and whatever, but it really motivated him because he didn't like seeing that happen. I mean, what did you say? You always told him, he would ask questions, and Mike said it's like a big bully with, countries wise. So Andy was like, I want to.
And the Marines were his dream, but
because
sadly.
his friends were joining the Marines. Kenny Hudson and all of them were joining the Marines, and Andy wanted to join so bad.
But sadly, they rejected him. Tell us why he was rejected by the Marines.
Andy had a history of migraines. And even though the doctor had said they were, juvenile because, he would outgrow them, he had a history and it was documented. And he went to get his physical and he passed everything except they had a clipboard and they went around and they said, okay, one of the questions was, do you have a history of migraines? And they had told him right before they made the announcement to all the candidates that if you lie, it's a federal offense. So Andy didn't lie. He said, yes, he had history. And so he checked the box. And when they asked him about them, he said, oh, they're okay. I take shots. And the doctor said, sorry, son.
So from that point on, his dream of joining the Marines was gone,
Yep.
but he did not give up easily.
He went back to the Marines and asked what he could do. And then I was hoping we could deter it by saying, well, Andy, if they don't want you, screw it, don't go back. And that didn't work. So then he went to...
Yeah, he had the A+ scholarship that he could fall back on. So then he enrolled in Jefferson College and spent a year there, but he just wasn't satisfied. He just decided he wanted to get into the military somehow, some way, and he went on a pretty good campaign of his own to try to get some help with politicians or whoever would help him, and he got letters from his doctor and stating that everything was okay, and then eventually after a year of going migraine free, the Army allowed him to enlist.
But you didn't know that he had gone on this letter writing campaign. He wrote Congressman Russ Carnahan, who was congressman at the time. Did he write the senators?
Senator Bond.
He also wrote military officials to try to get in.
Retired military generals, anybody he could list. He had a friend, and I don't know who she was, but apparently she was a pretty good writer. So she would help him, and she helped him find different people to write letters to. And it was just by accident that I was looking at the family computer, and he had not closed out, and I had saw one of the letters. And I showed Mike, and then we're like, he's going to do it.
So in February of 2007, he was accepted and sent off, but he went to boot camp. Tell us what that was like for him. Was that like one of the happiest days of his life, going to boot camp?
He was excited.
Yeah.
He brought home a book bag that had all the Army stuff in it and the mugs and everything else. And he was just like a little kid in a candy store. He was so excited to show me all the neat stuff the Army gave him. And then he was excited to go to boot camp. And he started working out so he wouldn't be a fatty when he went down there, he said. That's what he said. And so he got in the best shape of his life. He would go running, and for a Habsieger to run, that's unusual. So,
so then about 6 or 8 months later, in October of 2007,
he went to Iraq.
He went to Iraq.
Right.
What did he think about going to Iraq?
Apprehensive. I haven't done that, and I'm not in his shoes, but I can imagine, there's quite a bit of tension, for the newness of it all. And
did he talk to you guys at all about how he felt about going, or he?
Yeah, he talked about some of the people were really, really nice. it had snow flurried. I remember him calling about that because he was like, "Mom, they think we brought it," because they'd never seen snow, and it, obviously didn't hit the ground or anything. But he said the old people were out there, and he said that was pretty cool. And then he liked the kids. There was a picture that if Andy loved cotton candy, and it was a picture of him getting cotton candy in his uniform, and I thought that and dogs.
Dogs.
They said he was constantly trying to bring dogs back into camp.
As a matter of fact, I think it was the morning of that he was killed. They went out on an earlier patrol, and they had gotten back to their base, and they heard some whining, and they started looking around at each other, and one of them figured out Andy had found a little puppy and stowed it away in his vest and tried to sneak it back into the camp. And of course, they made him turn it loose, but he wasn't very happy with the fact he got caught.
Right. So Easter Sunday 2008, he was killed in his Bradley fighting vehicle on an attack on his unit.
It was a special mission. They had gotten, and they asked for a smaller group to go out because there was a woman called in and said that there was some unusual activity. So they went out, they picked a few, and it wasn't his complete group. And they went out, and he never rode in the first Bradley. And that particular day, they put him in the Bradley. And they went out, and then they knocked on the door, and the lady didn't answer. So pretty much a setup. And then first Bradley got hit, and then the other guys got into a major gunfight.
Yeah.
And they didn't even know the Bradley was hit. They just heard a pop, and then they realized because they were all fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
So then, come back here. Funeral was sometime later.
In April, yeah.
But the outpouring of support from the Festus community was
Unbelievable.
Unreal.
Tell us about how that made you feel.
Going, the visitation was one. Even going to get his body from the airport, there was lines all the way back, all the way down the highway. There was people lining up from even the airport on. There'd be cars pulled up. Everybody pulled. Yes.
It was unbelievable. Just the escort coming back into town.
It was the roads were lined.
Patriot Guard.
Patriot Guards.
Highway Patrol.
He worked for Laclede at the time, or Spire, and their trucks were all on the side of the road, lined up. People were hanging off the overpasses with flags. People were waving flags. It was pretty cool. I mean, it was just unreal, the support all the way to the funeral home.
And to be inducted into the Festus Hall of Fame, our inductees show they have academic success or some kind of success in their careers, but they also show good character. And one of the things that keeps coming back to me when I talk to anybody about Andy is that, and you guys have told me that he didn't tolerate bullies. He stood up to people who bullied people. That demonstrated his character. You have a story that you can tell us about how he stood up to people like that?
Well, that was just a real soft spot in his heart. He just constantly would come home and say something about somebody was saying something to an underclassman or something like that. And he just particularly didn't like that. But we were at a memorial service down in Fort Stewart, Georgia one time, and we'd met a lot of the people that Andy served with in Iraq. And what they did was each soldier that was killed overseas or even at home, but anyway, they had their own memorial garden. And they placed Christmas wreaths at the base of the trees, that was set there for each soldier. And one of the soldiers that was with Andy was a smaller person in stature, and he came over and he asked me if I would accept a separate wreath that he had found somewhere. We don't know where he got it, but he asked me if we would accept it and take it back to Andy at Jefferson Barracks in the cemetery, and we said we'd be honored to. And he said, Andy was my best friend. He said, I may not have been his, but he was mine. He says, on one occasion, people were giving me some grief for being, so short and small. And he said, and he told every one of them, he said, you leave him alone, he's with us, and he said that, and it was all good-natured, I'm sure, but Andy wouldn't tolerate even good-natured kidding when it attacked a person personally.
And I've heard stories when he did that in high school as well. And you find that, that's a brave move for a high schooler to do, is to stand up to fellow classmates who may be bullying somebody. I think that demonstrates what his character was all about, because you kind of risk, isolating yourself too from some people who, but that's the right thing to do. And he did the right thing.
Andy had a little bit of a speech problem. He pronounced his R's like he had been from New York, and that always bothered him. And I do believe that at one time he was made fun of, and he didn't like it. And people thought he was doing that on purpose, trying to do some kind of accent. And he was like, no. And his brother stood up for him, and he just thought, you know what? I didn't like it when people made fun of me for, pronouncing my R's differently. So he didn't like it when he knew what it felt like personally, I think. And that's why he was such an advocate on, you don't do that to other people. You don't hurt other people's feelings.
We'll just have another minute or two. Andy's legacy is going to go on forever now because of his induction into the Hall of Fame, but there's also the Andrew Habsieger Memorial Foundation and the Scholarship Fund. But tell us about how that makes you feel to know that he's going to live on forever.
That's a humbling experience. For, John Kreitz, and he hates his name mentioned, but he started it back in 2009. He approached Mike and I and asked if he could start a scholarship in Andy's name, which was, that's very nice. And just through him and his people that know him and the friends and the community that started it, look at it. I mean, they gave out over $125,000 in the 9 years, and they've given over 87 scholarships, and they're at all the schools, almost just darn near all the schools in Jefferson County. We have one in Kansas, and one in Lindbergh gives it out. And just look what he's done in that short time. And the people we have met through the foundation are some of the hardest working people. And over the years, I can honestly say I've never been so close to a bunch of people. We would have never met them any other way, probably. And I consider each and every one of them a close personal friend, if not family.
Anything else you'd like to say about Andy before we go?
No, I just think this is a very good thing for Andy, that he would be proud knowing this, and so we're just grateful that the opportunity's there.
The school's been very supportive, and we like that. We appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you, and thank you very much for taking the time with us. I know we have a busy schedule today, and so thank you for joining us with this live stream this morning. You can catch the Hall of Fame, you can catch the homecoming parade that Mike and Brenda will be in. That'll be at 1 o'clock, and then our pregame stuff before the football game tonight begins at 6:25. So we hope you'll catch all of that today, and thank you very much for tuning in. And we're done.
Didn't sound like idiots, did we?
No, you guys are very good. Thank you.
The radio sounded good.